Welcome to the Total Soccer Show. My name is Daryl Grove. I'm joined by a man with a fresh new haircut. His name is Taylor Rockwell. Hello.
Hello. I got the gentle reminder from my wife.
Is that right?
Yeah, we're going to a wedding this weekend. And she's like, do you think you're going to do anything with your hair before we go to the wedding? And I was like, I do now.
She's very subtle.
Yeah.
Very
Point
subtle.
taken.
It's Albert's wedding.
It is.
Former Total Soccer Show co-host. He may even be listening.
He may be listening. We shall see.
Yeah.
I feel like he's got other things on his mind right now.
Probably. Yeah, probably.
Mm-hmm. I know who will be there, and I know who his groomsmen are. He's definitely got some things on his mind.
Well, shall we say congratulations and best of luck?
I suppose
Albert.
we should.
I suppose.
Mostly to Lindsay. I feel like she'll have to do most of the hard work here.
Yeah. Actually, Albert deserves the congratulations. Lindsay doesn't.
Yes, exactly.
On our mind today
is
listener questions.
Yep.
We have some great listener questions to answer. They are mostly US men's national team and Major League Soccer themed. Would you like to ask the first one, or would you like me to ask you the first one, Taylor?
What would make your world happier, my friend?
Me asking questions.
All right.
Yeah, I like to be the question asker. I know all the correct terminology. First question today is from...
It is asker.
Gavin Coffin. Gavin called this question... MLS in the UK challenge, 3 exclamation marks.
All right.
MLS in the UK.
We're getting a lot of these types of questions, but this is a different one.
Yeah, we've invented a genre. I feel like. We've been on the receiving end of a genre.
Yeah.
Gavin says, you are Don Garber and friend.
Rough.
Can I be and friend?
Yeah.
Inspired by countless clubs coming to the US to have friendlies, like the International Champions Cup, and maybe regular season games like La Liga. There's still rumours of that Girona-Barcelona game in January.
I mean, their president said it's happening.
Really?
Yeah.
You are considering, that's Don Garber and friend, you are considering the UK to host a regular season MLS game to promote the league and showcase the best of MLS to a new market of fans and businesses. So which teams play in the UK, where and when? So we're going to stage an MLS game in the UK. Which teams play where and when?
Sure.
We've both thought long and hard about this, but we haven't shared our answers, right, Taylor?
We're not.
So what's your answer?
I have a couple different ones. I'll say that. The first one I'll say is I think in the future, the one that I feel like if it were to happen would make the most sense is Miami versus LAFC. That's the one, because I have a feeling that Beckham franchise is going to have all the glitz and glamour that you would expect of a Beckham franchise. LAFC, that is, have focused on the branding and the hat reveal and the color scheme, and it's all just very brand-oriented, and I feel like you've got enough name recognition within the teams and enough talent, theoretically, with Miami to back it up. And on top of that, I do think, maybe this is silly, you tell me if I'm wrong because you're English, but I also think that there's an allure to certain cities in the United States that if you have a cab driver in Istanbul, and I said I'm American, they will always be like, New York, Miami. Like, they're always love specific cities.
Oh, I see. That's interesting. Well, I would say the draw of the Miami team, which has a name, I've forgotten it now. Is it
Inter Miami?
Inter Miami. Will be that it's Beckham's team, right? If you're trying to sell this to my dad, right, who doesn't know anything about Major League Soccer except that Wayne Rooney's there, he will know that David Beckham has a team, right? So you could maybe sell it to him as, hey, David Beckham's team is playing. Yeah. He might be there. He'll be on the sidelines, like overlooking his team. You might be able to sell that to English fans.
Yeah.
It worries me, though, that your choice for an MLS team to show the best of the league is a team that has 0 players right now.
Yeah. I mean, that's not
They
great,
don't even have
right?
a stadium, right? They have an owner and a logo.
Yeah. But I think it's because the reality...
Some herons, I think?
Yeah, it's a thing standing with interlocking legs or something like that. It's because it's not a flamingo, because those aren't indigenous. That's what I've learned. I think it's because you have to kind of remove I had to remove a lot of my beliefs and ideas about Major League Soccer, because the reality is you can have a team that's really exciting and composed of lots of young Americans and they play this attacking system. The English people aren't going to care. It really is. I think because it's 2 American soccer teams coming to England, it's going to be hard enough to generate interest for these are the 2 best teams. You don't know any of the names, but trust us, they're really good, versus really what it would probably be right now is the Galaxy.
I'll be honest, you're really shooting down my answer before I've even given it.
What you got?
Well, no, let's finish with yours first.
Sure.
Because, for example, where would you like this to be played? I'm assuming somewhere in London?
Well, so this was the other thought I had. It's kind of indirectly answers your question, is basically I think if you were to do this, the other possible angle would be to go err on the side of local connections. So, for example, maybe 2 years ago, if you had Seattle come and play at Craven Cottage, and then you've got Clint Dempsey playing with the Sounders at Craven Cottage, you have that little built-in level of interest.
Yep.
So I think that's part of it for me. And then I think the other aspect would be if you could play in a place where maybe that game might matter a little bit more. So if you found a stadium that was large enough that maybe didn't get a lot of international games, maybe you're playing in Newcastle, maybe you're playing in Bournemouth, like in Bournemouth Stadium, something like that, where like there's just not as much. Yeah, you don't get as much like glorious friendlies or anything like that. So maybe there's a little bit more interest there.
Interesting. Okay, I'm not going to disagree with anything you said because I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this question.
I think there's a right answer.
Do you? You always do, right? I would, if I'm going to show off the league to English fans and businesses, I'm going to start from the assumption that some people will be just football fans and will just be curious and willing to go and see something, right? Because I'm kind of that way. I know my friends in London, for example, are kind of that way. Like, you know my friend Hugh? Yeah. He'll go and watch a weird football match because why not, right? I would want to show off the young Americans and not try and go with the draw of like Zlatan or Rooney or someone they already know. Because my feeling is if you're in England, you can see Premier League like stars all the time. The weird thing to do, I think, the weird good thing would be Atlanta United, New York Red Bulls. High energy, high pressing, fast soccer, and good players that you haven't heard of before. Like Tyler Adams, like Bradley Wright Phillips. Most people will not have seen Bradley Wright Phillips play. Joseph Martinez, Miguel Almiron, maybe Andrew Carlton off the bench. I think this is the best representation of American soccer that we could put before an English public.
I think you've kind of already convinced me because I think
it's normally much harder.
Well, I think if I'm being totally honest, I think I took a little bit of the cowardly route because my concern would be, while I appreciate your willingness to see things through rose-colored glasses, I don't think you'd get as many of those people as you think, as much as you would people who are looking to be critical and people who think, oh, Americans, they didn't make the World Cup. Why would I care about them? And so I think if you're bringing two teams that I would say are two of the best, if not the best in the league right now, there's a chance that if they both have a bad game, then it kind of is another condemnation of the league as these are your best teams, really? So I was erring on the side of if you go with the ones that will bring in the fans and then it sort of is like, yeah, they're fine, but then I get to see Zlatan one more time. But even then, that is sort of the cowardly way of doing it because there's no guarantee that Zlatan's going to have a good game, and then it's like, oh, you don't even have that guy, and that's all you have, and everybody else isn't very good.
You're a Zlatan hamstring tweak away from the whole thing falling apart, right? Well, I really would love for people to see Tyler Adams for the first time and be like, whoa, who's this kid running the midfield? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I know what you're saying. I don't know if that would happen, but I know what you're saying. Where would you have them play?
I also chose Craven Cottage. There's the obvious American connection. There's the fact that it's central London. There's the fact that it's a Premier League ground, so it has that, what's the word, gravitas to it. But it's also still pretty small. I think it's like 30,000 or so. Craven Cottage holds at most. That maybe even with some expansion, right?
I think it is, yeah.
So it's not a huge stadium, but it's still a Premier League stadium. And so I just think it's that perfect balance to play this MLS showcase.
I agree.
As for when, I mean, I'm assuming Gavin wants this to be, he said to host a regular season MLS game. I think the obvious thing would be to do it either when things are really dramatic, like towards the end of the regular season and going for playoff places, maybe a playoff game, so September, October, November, or if you're going to be trying to be a bit smart and cynical, in the summer when there's no other soccer.
Yeah, I mean that makes sense, right? Yeah, because
summer of 2019, there's probably there's not Premier League games, obviously, so you could get that MLS game right in the middle of summer. Yeah,
I agree with that. Can I go back to something? Because I have a question for you. Is there something to be said for having Atlanta play? I apologize, San Jose fans, but there's something to be said for having like Atlanta play the worst team in the league, and then it sort of is like, wow, that team's really good. Like maybe there's it shows the level.
You want to headline it as like it used to be like the Thriller in Manila, like the killing at Craven Cottage.
Yeah, exactly.
Maybe.
The massacre at the cottage. Yes.
Maybe we could do that. The other thing is, if maybe we can't fill Craven Cottage, actually, I wish I knew the exact attendance at Craven Cottage. Maybe you have to go somewhere smaller, like I know Brentford's ground or Leyton Orient's ground.
That's too small.
Yeah,
that's too small.
Too small. All right.
No, I think because then suddenly you're playing. Then the stories are like they couldn't even fill a League One team or whatever, and then suddenly you've got problems.
We get Barkers out on the corner.
Yeah, okay,
perfect. Or headline act.
We'll send the Cooligans. they can do it. I would say it's just
those men are above barking.
Yeah, that's definitely true. You're right. We're the barkers.
We'll send first season Pete Holmes. How about that?
Perfect. He's too nice though. I would say it doesn't really answer Gavin's question, but I would say if this were to happen, I think the way it would actually happen is that maybe you'd get an all-star team going and playing.
Oh, that's interesting.
And I think you could do that
the
instead
traveling MLS All-Stars.
Yeah, basically. You could send them. And I do think the teams I listed before are the teams that I would say would make the most sense. Teams like Fulham, Bournemouth, Newcastle, teams that have the Premier League pedigree, Bournemouth and Newcastle, slightly more so than Fulham, but historically.
Yeah.
But then also, Fulham aren't going to make the Europa League anytime soon, probably.
Unless they get Dempsey back.
Yeah, exactly. So then maybe this opportunity to play international opposition at home in a preseason friendly might be a little bit of a draw.
Okay, I don't disagree with that. I like it. I've just had another good idea, though. We could solve the whole who hosts MLS Cup thing. Instead of MLS Cup being, the Supporter Shield winner. Neutral ground, and we make it somewhere in England. Do we show off MLS by giving them MLS Cup?
I'm down. Since the Richmond Kickers are unlikely to be playing an MLS Cup anytime soon, I think I'm okay with that.
They could win the USL D3 Cup.
Yeah, that's the same. That's the same.
In 2019.
Yeah.
All right, I consider that question answered.
I agree. So let's move on to the second one. Tom Holt asks, what happens to the U.S. men's national team if Christian Pulisic gets injured before the next World Cup, like, say, Mohamed Salah? Is there a plan B?
So we imagine it's 2022, or we imagine the World Cup is right now?
It's difficult. You decide how you want to answer it.
Okay, let's imagine it's 2022, and we have our team, and our best player. Let's assume our best player in 2022 is still Christian Pulisic, and much like Mohamed Salah, he gets injured in the Champions League final playing against Sergio Ramos.
That works for me.
Could happen.
Sergio Ramos is more machine than man.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
He'll be out there hurting people in 2022.
Yeah. Of course,
in showpiece finals. I would hope that we're not as much of a one-man team as Egypt were with Mohamed Salah.
Yeah.
Right? And actually, the more I hear people talk about building the team around Pulisic and him being on all the marketing and all that kind of stuff, it really concerns me because I never, ever want to support that team because that team definitely has a ceiling, right?
Yeah.
Once you have a star player that everything depends on, you absolutely have a ceiling.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's because the United States going through a historic low period, he is the easy one to attach a lot of U.S. soccer's goodwill and positivity and reputation on because
even
he's established playing the Champions League.
He was present at that Trinidad game.
He sure was.
Worth noting, right?
We don't need to talk about that.
Right, but we all pretend that he wasn't. That it's nothing to do with him.
But to be honest, I have roughly the same answer as you do, which is that I think if we go back and look at the way Egypt were expected to play with Salah in the lineup, it was a lot of 9 outfield players behind the ball, occasionally 10, and you break through Mohamed Salah. And so he is the focal point.
Do you remember when we did the whole preview? I think they changed centre forward in the end, but the centre forward's job was to just win the ball, win a direct ball, knock it down to Mohamed Salah. It was so much all through Mohamed Salah. Even everybody's job was somehow related to Mohamed Salah. What I would hope is that the US has a system and a team where, say Pulisic is our right winger and he's maybe he's our best player. But if he's injured, then, all right, it's 2022, so who knows? But maybe the replacement is Kenny Saif or Andrew Carlton or Paul Areola or Jonathan Aim. You know what I mean? So there's someone who just replaces him who is maybe not as good but fits into the system. Yeah. And it's not about just one player.
Exactly.
Yeah?
I mean, and really...
So plan B is have a plan.
Yeah. I mean, and I think you could look at... I know a lot of ink has been spilled on this topic, but you look at the most recent iterations of the U.S. national team, it hasn't been Christian Pulisic in there except for one game. And so I think you have your answer, is that we would basically play... maybe the same style, but we would just change it up a little bit as to who would go there. It would probably be less attacking if it happened right now, but I cannot stress enough how quickly and often things can change in a year or 2 years or 3 years. There's a decent chance that by 2022, Christian Pulisic isn't our best player or isn't far and away our best player.
Right?
Yeah, I mean, yes.
I would love that to be the case because it means that even if he develops as expected and we've got someone else whose career gets even further, I mean, that's great. That's brilliant.
Yeah. I mean, I know this is a big downer and it is kind of the question though, so here we go. It's there was probably a chance that 3 years before his World Cup, we would have said Stu Holden is going to be running the midfield for the U.S. national team.
True.
You never know what's going to happen. And so it's tough for me to really kind of go too deep into this question because what I keep going back to is we've got 3.5 years or 4 years, I guess, since it's going to be in the winter.
It's not even November.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So there's a lot of time still to go before we worry about Christian Pulisic being the workhorse for this team.
Yeah, maybe the best thing is just to keep him away from Sergio Ramos.
Yeah, that works.
Keep all the US players away from Sergio Ramos.
Yes, at all costs, always.
All right, more men's national team talk to come, including in today's ad.
Yep.
Today's show is sponsored by Greats. Greats make the sneakers that I am not wearing right now because I biked here, and I only wear my Great sneakers when I want to look good.
I came here from coaching, so I am not wearing my Greats either because I don't believe bright white shoes or very pretty black shoes would go well in muck that's been rained on for a week straight.
So if you have, that's true. If you have not heard of Greats, they are Brooklyn's first sneaker company. The shoes are made in Italy, and they are beautiful to the touch. By which I mean, if you pick it up and look at it, it looks great, feels great. Slip it on your foot, looks great, feels great.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Look and feel good.
Men's and women's styles. What have you been wearing? I know we both got sort of a nice complimentary pair from Greats to I'm assuming we can keep those, right? We don't have to send them back after.
I don't know. We might have to. Honestly, I forget the name of them. They're the high top black ones.
Royals. Royal high top. You got the black ones.
I did.
Yeah.
You got the brown ones, right?
I got the Quau, I think they're called. Is that the Italian word for leather?
That was almost going to be my answer to the upcoming question, and then I realized there was no chance I could pronounce it, so I gave it.
So obviously we got men's styles. Women's styles also available. What we decided to do was if we were going to gift a pair of Greats to a US men's national team player or coach, whom would we make a gift to, and which shoes would we give them?
You give a shoes to a coach?
I haven't chosen a coach. I was just making sure, in case you had.
No, I'm just, Josh Sargent. He's moved to Werder Bremen. He's amongst a lot of guys who've been pros for a long time. They've probably got a little more money than he does. Yeah. They've probably been able to spend a little more lavishly. They've got a nice wardrobe, right?
Yeah.
So I just, I want Josh Sargent to feel like he can compete, but I also wanted to have a little bit of the flair. So I'm going to get him the Pronto animal prints, like the leopard print shoes. I feel like he's got to stand out. We want Josh Sargent to stand out, but affordably so.
Interesting. Have you heard this stuff about Josh Sargent? That there's a rumor or a suggestion that because he wasn't named to
Scuff threw that one out there. Yeah,
Scuff. All right, good old Adam Bells. Because he wasn't named to a Werder Bremen 2 squad recently, and Werder Bremen senior team has a lot of
3 games. Yeah,
3 games in a short space of time. And he's in that first team photo. There's a chance that Sargent is getting his debut sometime in the next couple of weeks.
And he'll look all the better when he's wearing animal print shoes. So there we are.
Maybe that will be what seals the deal.
100%.
For me, my gift is going to Weston McKennie. People like me have been putting maybe a little bit too much pressure on Weston McKennie.
So you're going to buy him shoes to make up for it?
Schalke are not doing well. He didn't have a great game for the US men's national team. I'm going to relieve the pressure on Weston McKennie by giving him some room to breathe with the Royale perforated Blancos.
Okay. You've taken it a different direction.
I certainly have. So yeah, there's the shoes. They're basically the same as the shoes we got, but with perforated, mesh looking type leather. I assumed. So just to give them a bit of room to breathe.
All right. So if they maybe wanted to get their own shoes, they could. If listeners wanted to do the same, they could, and they could do so at a 15% discount.
They certainly can. You use the discount code TSS at greats.com, and you'll get 15% off your first purchase at greats.com. Dressed like Weston McKennie and Josh Sargent soon will be if we get around to sending those gifts.
Do it indeed. Thank you to Greats for sponsoring today's show. Daryl, next question
is from Michael Hastings Black. Michael Hastings Black wants to know if Gregg Berhalter becomes the next US men's national team coach. I mean, he's definitely on the short list, right? Unofficially. How likely do you think it is that Jesse Zardes and Will Trapp will become mainstays? And he's obviously asking because Berhalter is coaching Trapp and Zardes at Columbus Crew.
I have no idea is my answer. I'll give you more than that. But I will say, we don't know. Because we don't know if Gregg Berhalter really loves Jesse Zardes and Will Trapp, or those were the players he was given. We know that he's a coach who basically takes what he has, figures out a system that fits what he has, and then plays accordingly.
My assumption is that he was heavily involved in the recruitment of Jesse Zardes, and Zardes has done well from him. So I'm guessing Berhalter is pro Zardes, right?
That's my question, though, because I don't know if it was them trying to get Zardes or LA trying to get Ola Kamara that made that situation happen.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Either way, I think my answer is going to be somewhere in the middle, which is that I think when you're looking at some of those more domestic rosters that the U.S. occasionally calls in, I think they're going to be in there, but I think they're going to be in there because they're in there for Dave Sarachan. They were in there for Bruce Arena.
Yeah.
To some extent for Jurgen Klinsmann, not really, but I think that as long as they continue to perform at the level they're performing and score the goals or play the games that they've been playing.
Play the diagonal balls.
Yeah. Then I think that they merit consideration, if not inclusion.
So regardless of whether Berhalter is the coach or not?
Yeah.
I would say that they are just more likely to be in the first squad under Berhalter than under another coach, right? And not that they wouldn't deserve to be, but there's more chance. Because I'm thinking of things like Bruce Arena calling up Sebastian Lletget for that World Cup qualifier. I think it was against Honduras, and he got injured, but he played really well. I'm guessing another coach would not have called up Sebastian Lletget because Arena had coached him at Galaxy. Do you know what I mean? You do end up that you are more familiar and you know more about the players that you have coached domestically, and therefore they have a better chance of getting called up to the national team.
The more glaring one is, I don't even remember his name, but it was the Galaxy.
Michael Antonio.
No, the goalkeeper.
LA Sam Allardyce.
It was the LA goalkeeper that he gave a cap to, and the consensus was like, oh no, that was 100% because he coached him last season and appreciated what he did for the Galaxy.
Yeah.
Can't remember who that was.
Was it David Bingham?
No, it was somebody. No, because I don't think Bingham was there when Arena's coaching.
Right.
Bingham was with San Jose.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
I can't remember who we're thinking of.
But maybe Bruce Arena isn't the best indicator of what's going to happen. I think really just what it comes down to is what system Gregg Berhalter comes to rely upon. And I mean that from the standpoint of, like, if you're trying to play with 2 number 8s instead of a number 6, I don't know if that benefits Will Trapp as much.
I see.
If you want to have 2 number 6s, then that definitely seems more like a system that favors Will Trapp. So, and then if you're going like big target striker, not so much Gyasi Zardes. If you want pacey striker,
they do aim a lot of crosses at him.
We'll see. Yeah. But I just think, again, it's dependent upon the system. I think Gregg Berhalter is smart enough not to go that route of like, oh, these guys can do it in Columbus for me, so I definitely want them on the national team all the time.
Here's my guess, is that maybe he will lean on Zardes and Trapp when he picks his first roster because that's who he's familiar with. But the longer he goes, like, the more distance between when he had the Columbus job and when he has the US job, you get familiar and comfortable and you get to like new players. And every coach develops their favourites, right? We don't know who Berhalter's favourites will be. We can guess that they're the guys he works with now, but it may be that he really likes Alfredo Morales. You know what I'm saying? You don't know until it happens.
Yeah, but I would also add that like this is why I initially said I don't know, because I agree with everything you said, but there's also the chance that maybe he wants to be like, no, I'm not just the Columbus coach, so I don't want to just call in Columbus players. In fact, I'm not going to call in Columbus players, so I don't get tagged with that like, oh, he's just calling in his favorites. So there's a chance he doesn't include either one of them on his first roster.
Wow.
Like, I'm just saying, like, you could
I'm
go either way.
the drama of Gregg Berhalter's imagined early days.
Well, I think that's the thing is like, and what I want to end on is just that like, we don't know Gregg Berhalter well enough to say what he will do as the national team coach. We can have ideas, and I think, Gyasi Zardes and Will Trapp will probably continue to be considered. But I always get a little uncomfortable when like it gets too close to that, like, Fox talk show where they're screaming at each other about what Gregg Berhalter is going to do. Neither one of them knows, but it's easier just to scream at each other. So I'm excited to find out if/when Gregg Berhalter gets the job. But either way, I bet we have not seen the last of Will Trapp and Gyasi Zardes.
Yeah, and we shouldn't have either. Okay, Brian A. with the next question.
Oh, I believe this is me.
Oh, excuse me.
Me? Yes, it's me.
I was just letting you know, Taylor, it's Brian A.
With the next question. Why doesn't Luca De La Torre get more looks with the U.S. men's national team? From what I've seen of him, and which is admittedly limited, says Brian, he has creativity, composure, and a bit of an icy streak that appeared unique to my less sophisticated eyes. Don't we lack this type of player and need to nurture the development of a guy like Luca De La Torre?
We do lack this type of player because he is sort of creative, quick thinking. He's got a bit of swerve to him. You know what I mean? When De La Torre is on the ball, I think the reason he doesn't get more looks with the US men's national team is the same reason that Brian A's looks at him have been admittedly limited. Luca De La Torre is only 20. He has only played, I think, last season he played 50 minutes total across 5 games for Fulham in the Championship. This season he's played 16 minutes in the EFL Cup and 13 minutes for the US. So he did play for the US. He got his debut in that away game against Ireland in June, right? He played the last 13 minutes for his debut. But that's all we've seen of him, right? So you can't start calling up someone to the senior men's national team regularly if they've not even played 90 minutes of professional football.
Yeah,
he's never played more than 26 minutes in a match.
And I would extend that further to Brian says, don't we need to nurture the development of a guy like this? We don't, because I don't think that's U.S. Soccer's job at a certain point. U.S. Soccer's job isn't to develop a 20-year-old. That's Fulham's job. That's where he plays. So I would make the argument that leaving him with Fulham to continue his growth, to continue his development, to maybe get those minutes, same thing that we want to see them do at Werder Bremen with Josh Sargent. That's why you don't call him in. Until he can establish himself and feel comfortable there so that he can then go on international duty and come back, you don't want to just pull him out of a situation because we want to see a new face.
I would also say, I mean, I'm not convinced that if we put him on the field in a really serious competitive men's national team game, that he would do okay, right?
Yeah.
He's quick thinking. He's a great dribbler. He's still like a short guy, very slight, with very slight experience of, men's professional football. Played a lot of U20, a lot of U23, but he's still got some learning to do. We can't be throwing him into proper international matches. I would even say that the nurturing we did when we gave him 13 minutes, we being the US, against Ireland, that may have been just to remind Fulham that, hey, this guy's an international. Maybe you should take him a bit more seriously. That might be the most nurturing we could manage to do for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And one other thing I would say, and this is maybe a larger conversation for you and I to have right now if you want, is like, I don't know where I stand on giving players caps, because I like the idea of giving a bunch of people the experience and the opportunity to show that they belong or to show that they need a little bit more time. But I also have that feeling of like, it can be almost like when you make a transfer in FIFA because you're bored of your team and you just want new faces in there. Giving somebody their first cap is sort of the equivalent of signing a new player. You're showing like, ooh, we've got this person coming through and we've got them to develop.
Shiny.
But it can be the case that you're just giving caps to people who aren't ready. And then if Luca De La Torre comes on, does start a game, but looks really bad in that first half and gets subbed out, you remember that much more than you remember the 20 minutes against Ireland or whatever, and it sticks with him, and that becomes a thing he has to overcome. And so there is an argument to be made.
You're sort of hurting rather than helping.
So if you give a cap too early and put too much pressure on a player when they're not ready, when they're not even starting for their club team or close to starting for their club team, then you might, in fact, hurt their development.
I would say maybe a better phrasing of Brian's question isn't why doesn't Luca Torre get more looks with the US national team? Because, we've answered, right? He's young. He hasn't played much professional soccer. He's not quite ready. Maybe the better question is, why aren't more people talking about Luca De La Torre? Right?
Yeah, that's a great question.
He's with a Premier League team. He's on the edges of that Premier League team. In many ways, he's as close to Fulham's first team as Tim Weah is to PSG's first team.
Yeah.
Right? I'm not sure the exact depth chart. That may not be quite accurate.
I would say
it's not dissimilar.
I'd say he's probably closer, if anything.
And he's a couple of years older, right? So I think it's true that maybe we don't talk about him enough. We don't talk about him enough. US media doesn't talk about him enough. And when you do watch the minutes that are available of Luca De La Torre, he is a very exciting player. He goes at people. He's got these really inventive tricks, inventive passes, and he is that, like I said, he's small and slight. He's almost the type of guy we should want to succeed to project a different image of American soccer, but we've invested all our hopes in Andrew Carlton instead of Luca De La Torre.
Well, that's because Andrew Carlton was playing. That's what it comes down to.
That's true.
You can't say we haven't talked about him enough and then say he's played 18 minutes this season. There's not much to talk about aside from yep, he's still at Fulham. We still hope he comes through. So I think that's, I guess, what I mean to say is that we'll talk about him when he does stuff. But just being he's at a European club, let's give him a cap and see what happens. That can be a dangerous road to go down, in my opinion.
I actually, now think about it, he's 20. I would like De La Torre to go on loan and get some.
Agreed,
if he could play in the Championship or the Scottish Premier League Emerson Hyndman did, I'd definitely be tuning in to watch me some Luca De La Torre in action.
100%. And I appreciate Brian's question because it really does. That's the type of question that makes me really think about a player or an approach to calling up players and makes me think about things differently a little bit more, which is why I love the listener question shows to begin with.
Same, right? To put some attention on maybe a player that deserved a little more. Yeah, all right.
And his 18 minutes.
And his 16 minutes.
Excuse me.
16 minutes.
Excuse me.
In the AFL Cup this year. Today's show...
And his 28 minutes. I'm just going to keep the numbers going.
Today's show is sponsored by Roughnecks Scarves.
Yeah,
Roughnecks Scarves. They are the official scarf providers of US Soccer, Major League Soccer, USL, and NCAA. Excuse me, the USL.
Thank you.
Yeah. They also make custom scarves. You can go to roughneckscarves.com and you can get a custom scarf design.
You sure can.
People do this to sort of raise money for a non-profit or for a team that they coach or run.
Or to make us laugh on Twitter.
Because we asked if you were to design a custom Roughneck scarf to represent Champions League match day 1, what would it look like? And I'm sure you can guess, Taylor, the majority of the answers were about a certain man and a certain colour card.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was trying to think of another player who got a red card so I could do it on the fly.
It was the yellow Joe Gomez card.
Oh, okay, there we go. Perfect. Raymond Adrian, side 1, my goat gets hat tricks. Side 2, your goat gets red cards.
No more explanation.
So, Barca fan there for Raymond, I'm guessing?
Or just a Messi fan, right?
Yeah, it could be.
Jonathan Escobar says $263 million on fire on one side, Klopp and Firmino smiling with their shiny teeth on the other.
Firmino's teeth are shiny.
They
I know
are.
we've said that many times. I know it's been talked about a lot.
Yeah.
But they were so distracting when he was sitting on the bench because it was like kind of hazy, and you just look up and you just see like white, and it's like, whoa. It reminds me of the episode of Friends when Ross leaves the teeth whitener on too long. You can see they glow in the dark.
Bobby Firmino goes to the same dentist.
I think he does. Jeff Huffman says
he went to fake Manhattan just like Ross did.
that one street shot that they always use.
It's in California.
Jeff Huffman, Fernandinho alone on a tiny deserted island looking in all directions while shark fins with French flags circle around him. Mm-hmm. I don't know why Benjamin Mendy has that French flag, but I guess he does.
He was loaning it to the other Mendy.
Oh, okay.
On Leon. Yeah. Andrew Dale, we looked into if they were related or not, right? They are not.
I don't think they are.
Andrew Dale says, Sadio Mane putting Neymar on skates on one side. The other side is Neymar still skating. I really like the vision of this. I imagine it's like a please turn over and then Neymar's still going. We didn't talk about this Sadio Mane move on Neymar. I mean, it's more just like a Giphy or Jiffy moment, right?
Gif.
But it does... And Neymar's not a left back, so you can't really expect him to defend Sadio Mane. But it really did feel like the balance of power in that match had shifted when Mane's putting moves on Neymar.
And the gif of Neymar falling into a pool is my favorite one while we're on that topic.
I love that.
Yes.
I love that one.
So if you wanted to get your own Roughneck scarf, you could do so, and our listeners can get 20% off what do we say again? National team, NCAA?
MLS, USL.
There we go.
Any scarf that you see at roughneckscarves.com, you get 20% off. What is the discount code, Mr. Rockwell? Don't get it wrong. You got it wrong last time.
I was going to make one up.
It's written down on the paper.
I still want to make one up.
I know you do.
Total Soccer Show.
There
all
we
one
go.
word for 20% off your order.
The drama in this room. Thank you to Roughneck Scarves for sponsoring today's show.
All right, final question from Matt Olivo. If you were to put all the top divisions of the top division global soccer leagues into tiers in terms of talent and the quality of soccer being played, where would MLS land and who would its peers be? And can it ever become a tier 1 league?
Ooh, this is a question. This is the eternal question.
I would say they're already a tier 1 league.
Would you really?
No. No.
So we're not going to do a Colin Cowherd
But
show.
I did make people angry, so that's fun.
Did. All right. So I want to caveat this by saying I kind of love answering this question, but it's also so hard to answer because leagues just can't play against each other, really, right? Even the Champions League, you get PSG against Liverpool. That doesn't really represent the Premier League against Ligue 1, right? It's just one team against another. It's actually hard to judge where leagues are in terms of each other. And then on top of that, Major League Soccer is weird, right? It's not just that it's single entity. It's
I think that's their official slogan.
It's all the weird roster rules and the GAM and the TAM and the designated players and all of that stuff makes MLS a real outlier in terms of how leagues are run, right? I think I texted you today. There's no other league that has Zlatan Ibrahimovic and O'Neal Fisher in the same league. So MLS is a tough thing to reckon with. Right.
Shots fired on O'Neal Fisher, by the way.
All that said, well, he fired crosses towards Wayne Rooney, got himself an assist. All that said, I believe you've been doing some league ranking in tiers.
I think so. All right, you tell me what you think.
I don't mean you were crying while you did it.
I mean, you tell me what you think of this. This is like my rough, I did this in like 2 minutes. So, I know people out there are going to be mad, but here we go.
I think that's the best way to do it. Too much thought into it and you drive yourself crazy.
I've got tier 1. I've got Spain, Germany, and England.
Okay, it's harsh on Serie A.
Maybe Italy. I had them in tier 2 with France and Portugal. So maybe they're like between 1 and 2. Erring on the side of 1. Okay. So then, France, Portugal, tier 2. I have the Netherlands, Turkey, Russia, Greece in that sort of tier 3 category.
Right. I'm going to say it's generous to Greece, but all right.
All right. Well, then, because I think...
I guess my critique is not helpful here.
Here's where we can flip back and forth, is that I feel like tier 4 is sort of more like where you've got solid domestic leagues that tend to be the export... that export to larger leagues. Okay. So I would say Brazil and Argentina, very established traditional leagues, but you've got a lot of their talent going to Europe, going to the Ukraine, who I've got in here, who then export it further on, and Mexico, I would say, probably in that list as well. That's tier 4-ish for me. You can flip that around if you want. Tier 5 would be Scandinavia, the J-League, the K-League, and Major League Soccer.
So I don't know if I agree with all your different tiers, but I think it's very easy to debate up and down.
Sure.
Right? There could be pro-rel between those tiers, and some teams would finish at the bottom and the top and whatever. So absolutely separate from you, I kind of wrote that I think MLS is similar to the Scandinavian leagues, Sweden, Denmark, Norway. and also the J League.
Yeah.
J League's a good parallel because they didn't launch exactly the same time. J League launched earlier, but it was a league that was launched sort of later than the European leagues that were launched a lot decades and decades ago.
Yeah. But I would put them in that same level of like decent quality domestic leagues with sort of maybe not Scandinavia so much, other than like that they've changed when they play their seasons so that they're not playing in 9 feet of snow. But like you've got sort of rules and conditions and stipulations in place to help grow the leagues, and with that comes like you've got some players moving abroad, you've got some big names, but you've got a lot of players still playing domestically and helping like fuel the national team with those lesser known but still talented players that could then make that move. All of that feels like a similar level to Major League Soccer.
I think some people would say maybe we should include the A-League in that tier, but the A-League's in a bit of trouble.
It's
in a
lot of trouble.
Attendance is they do supply players to the national team, but attendance is down. Like they haven't really managed to expand much. We talked about this on the other show, right? Australian soccer's got a little bit of trouble, and MLS, for all our problems, like not qualifying for the World Cup, and people complaining about MLS at least is steady, right, and steadily growing. So I would say MLS above the A-League, and then I like the J League parallel. And I think the weird Scandinavia parallel to me is just about players that we've seen go back and forth between those leagues. It seems like about the right level, right? Like Charlie Davies went to Scandinavia and then MLS. Bobby Warshaw, MLS and Scandinavia. There's a lot of just it seems like it levels out more or less.
Yeah, I think so. I think because you've got
we can't prove it as a problem, but it just feels that way.
But I think it's because you've got a few teams that make the Champions League, obviously because they win their league, but like do okay in the Europa League, but then you've got the kind of drop-off where you're always going to have lower-tier Scandinavian teams that are probably, maybe in some cases, not as good as Major League Soccer teams. So I think it kind of averages out to Major League Soccer. Yeah,
that feels about right. I think also, if you think of it as a selling league, my gut feeling is, based on some observation, is that when someone from the big leagues buys a player from the Scandinavian league, they're a little like, I don't know about this, right? They don't fully trust it as a measurement of talent, and I think maybe the same goes for Major League Soccer. Right? Like it's a gamble for a La Liga team to buy someone from Scandinavia. It's a gamble for a La Liga team to buy someone from MLS.
I mean, and I would say that extends to Japan and Korea as well. That there's no guarantees that for every Kagawa you've got, I guess that's China, but I was going to say like Dongfeng Zhu. Like you're going to have players who maybe make it to like a certain level, but they're not going to be those global superstars. And I think that's where I have them as opposed to Brazil, Argentina, Mexico, where you will get those global superstars coming out of those domestic leagues.
And definitely the Liga MX versus MLS argument has been kind of harshly settled over the last few years. MLS catching up, but we're still not there.
3-1 loss by Toronto last night continues that one.
Oh, to Tigres, in the Campeones Cup, I believe it's called.
Great.
Yeah.
The inaugural.
It's a bilingual cup, at least. Yeah.
Hooray.
So what about MLS becoming a Tier 1 league? Could it ever happen?
I mean, anything is possible, I guess. It's a lot harder than I thought it was 10 years ago. I'll say that much. Because I think the more I've learned about FIFA and UEFA and the way they operate and really the stigma that it still exists about American soccer and America as a whole, I think it gets harder to get players to go play in the United States and like a blanket level. Like I don't know if it has as much appeal. We've talked about this before and it makes people frustrated, whatever. People want to play, like players in England who spent all their time in rainy Manchester will happily go to Miami. They'll happily go to Los Angeles. Seattle's great. They've won an MLS Cup. I don't know if players will go there because it has that reputation for rain and it's a huge flight to get from Seattle to London or to Paris. So I think like those sort of outside of soccer limitations really do factor into how hard it will be to really get MLS to that level. So
trying to think about if this could happen, like MLS being a Tier 1 league where it is ranked alongside the Bundesliga and the Premier League and La Liga. It would basically just take, I think, a massive investment in MLS teams so that it becomes almost like an NFL, NBA type thing where it is the place to earn money and they can throw money at not just 3-star players, but they can throw money at 15-star players, right? So I think that's not feasible. Like I'm not actually predicting this is going to happen, but I think it's not impossible. If suddenly it was a wash with money and we were just throwing money and getting 15 designated players on every team, it's possible, but it would be the worst thing to happen to American soccer, because then it would be at the expense of American soccer youth development, right? So I would argue that we are better off MLS not becoming a Tier 1 league in the circumstances I just described, because we want it to be a feeder league, right? We want it to be a place where young talent can get their start and then move on.
Yeah, 100%. I would say, though, that like...
Thank you for coming to my TED Talk.
Well, except that I'm going to disagree with your TED Talk a little bit, because I would say also that like the American leagues you mentioned existed before any other leagues. Like, I mean, I'm sure there were some people playing basketball somewhere.
I'm not saying it's a direct parallel, but I'm saying they could become that destination type thing.
But what I'm saying, though, is that like that's what Qatar is already trying to do. You have leagues that are already trying to spend a ton of money to make themselves the Premier League.
But not on the whole roster, right? Like Chinese Super League is maybe one we didn't talk about, but they're doing the same thing, right? Where they're spending big money on 3 or 4 or 5 players per team, but the rest are like Chinese players.
Yeah, but I guess what I'm saying is I think there's enough people who are willing to spend insane amounts of money on a player, and enough teams or countries or whatever, that it really does make it that much harder. Like, you have to have those outside incentives, and I think some teams in the United States do. Maybe some of them are because of their history and their success. I think a lot of it is geography and what those locations offer. I really do think that.
If we just had like 10 teams in Miami, 10 teams in LA, 10
I think that's the NFL model. Throw a Vegas in there. Yeah. But I think that is part of it, because really what I think it would take is the United States or Major League Soccer moving into that, maybe the tier 4 or whatever it is of like Brazil, Argentina, Ukraine, Mexico, of developing more players so that the United States becomes... I think right now the U.S. has, like, American players have a reputation for they work really hard, they try really hard, they're not very expensive, they're not very technical. And I think that you have clubs that are willing to spend...
Luca De La Torre is going to change all that.
That would be lovely. But I think you've got a lot of teams...
By not working hard.
Yeah. But I mean, think about the offers that came in for Darlington Nagbe at first when he was still at Portland. And it was like Celtic were offering $3.5 million or $2.5 million or whatever. Yeah. Like it's going to take enough players making it and doing well for European teams and American players that came from Major League Soccer, I think, for that reputation to change into, America is developing young...
for us to get into like tier 4.
To move into a tier where we are developing players that people really want on a consistent basis. And then I think from there, once you get that reputation, some of those players start staying, some of them start coming back, and then you maybe move up a little bit. But I think it takes a long time before there's tier 1 in there.
Actually, if you don't mind getting into this, the problem right now is we're not able to even become that selling style league, because our best players we probably lose at around 16, right?
Yep.
If they can get their passport straight, then they can leave at 16. Even if not, they can leave at 18. Like, say, Josh Sargent bypassed, Weston McKennie bypassed, Luca De La Torre bypassed, right? So if anything, maybe the thing should be to try and get these talented young players in early enough that we become a selling league.
Yep.
That should be our ambition. We're not even there yet.
It's not.
Yeah.
And
this is a depressing conversation.
Well, and then I think because there's a few people who are probably screaming into their earbud microphone.
Yeah. It only works one way, people.
Well, I'll just say this. It's,
and those new ones.
And then you have to look at the inhibiting obstacles of the structure of U.S. soccer as a whole and how that factors into it, that you don't have sell-on fees, you have single entity.
Yes.
That all plays a part in how easily you're able to sign and move players and make money off of players.
You can get players young because you don't have to pay any of the fees.
Yeah. So, I mean, I think all of that is worth considering when you're looking at how you develop Major League Soccer and American soccer to get it to another level, if not the top level.
Okay. All right. On that note, if we want to think about the future, shall we talk Total Soccer Show Scouting Network? I should remind people, if you want to send us a question, we love answering listener questions. Please send them to totalsoccershow.com/questions. We'll put that link in the show notes. Also, if you subscribe at $10 a month or more, we guarantee to answer one question minimum per month from you.
There we go.
Unless it's terrible. Then we'll ask you for another one.
That makes sense. We've had to do that once or twice. Yes, and so today we're going to be putting out, it's like more America MLS-centric listener questions. I think the Friday show is going to be a little bit more European and other stuff as well.
Yeah. Interesting, right?
Yeah, all right, yeah.
It's a Eurosnob special.
Yeah, perfect. Eurosnob and podcast, as far as I understand the questions right now.
Scout Network?
Let's do it.
Let's go.
First one comes from Aran Kirwan, scouting Sebastian Soto, 18-year-old American forward for Hannover 2. Hannover 2? Yeah, why not?
You say so.
Sebastian has been racking up goals with Hanover's U19s, scoring a brace on 2 separate occasions. He has a knack for making perfectly timed runs to the weak side of the goal to pounce on half chances. He's gotten minutes in each of their last 5 games, including most recently, netting in the 9th and 32nd minutes to lead Hanover to a 2-1 victory over Magdeburg.
Oh, I can hear Bobby Wood sweating.
Can you?
No,
okay.
Can't. My ears aren't that good.
Right.
Sebastian Soto, a name worth remembering. Michael Bate is scouting Tiena Davidson, 20-year-old American defender for Stanford. Tiena turned 20 on Wednesday.
Yes, she did.
Tiena Davidson will miss 10 to 12 weeks with a fractured ankle. Wow, straight to the point from Michael. The injury occurred when she was fouled in her 3rd game of the collegiate season. After a very successful year with the national team, she scored recently, right? This injury rules her out of the World Cup qualifying tournament and will possibly end her collegiate season as well. I keep forgetting that Tiena Davidson is not pro.
She is not.
Because she plays like one.
Yeah, she does. I think has the most minutes of any national team player right now. That will probably change given the injury. Up next, Chloe Crumry scouting Sophia Smith, 18-year-old American forward for Stanford.
Oh, can I just say thank you, Chloe, for sending this in? Remember we were on Chloe for not sending reports on Sophia? I'm happy that we
I do not remember that, but I'm glad you do. Smith had an impressive 2 weeks, scoring her 2nd, 3rd, and 4th goals in games against number 2 North Carolina, Notre Dame, and number 7 Santa Clara.
Santa Clara.
She has also been recognized by ESPN as a Player of the Year candidate for her contributions to the ongoing unbeaten record of the Cardinal.
Sounds like Stanford's the college team to watch.
Yeah, a little bit.
Brian Hoyser is scouting Sergino Dest, the 17-year-old American winger for Ajax. Brian says Sergino Dest entered as a sub in the 67th minute and scored a minute later in Ajax's 6-0 win over AEK Athens in Wednesday's UEFA Youth League matchup.
They doubled the senior team.
They did. Ajax played, so they're twice as good as a senior team,
yeah,
or the
much.
AEK team is twice as bad as a senior team. Ajax played a through ball.
Things can be two things.
Slightly too long, and the goalie whiffed on what should have been a routine pickup.
They're worse.
Dest capitalised on the error with an easy goal. I've actually seen this.
Oh, boy. Yeah, not great. Not great there. What is... well, pretty good, is Jake Lamar scouting Austin Trusty, 20-year-old American defender for the Philadelphia Union. No, it's good. Trusty scored his first career goal on Sunday against Montreal. It was a glancing header at the near post from a corner. However, the Impact responded with 4 goals of their own. That's what I remembered. 2 of which came off of counters when the Union had both center backs forward for corners.
Don't do it, people.
Daryl Grove is mad.
Don't do it.
However, Trusty and the Union had a massive bounce back with a 1-0 win Wednesday night in Seattle, keeping a clean sheet against a dominant Sounders side.
That's big to beat that Seattle team. Tristan Gilland Kunkel is scouting Derek Jones, the 21-year-old American midfielder for the Philadelphia Union. Derek started and played the full 90. Interesting, he doesn't always do that. In arguably the Union's biggest win in team history, that previously mentioned 1-0 win over the Seattle Sounders. I feel like Taylor's added that in to give us some connectivity, right? Derek put in a strong...
No, Tristan knew that Jake had just sent in the report on Austin Trusty.
Derek put in a strong and sometimes overly aggressive defensive performance and was booked in the 52nd minute. The style of play seemed to be manager Jim Curtin's game plan, and the fact that Jones got 90 minutes demonstrates the trust he has gained in recent months.
Hooray, trust.
Yeah.
And Trustee, the processing of Derek Jones. Something like that, right? Did I get it?
Yeah.
Did I do it? All right. John Adams, scouting Shayon Harrison.
Give you a D-.
I'll take a D+, thank you. 21-year-old English striker for Tottenham. Spurs U23s beat Man City's U23s 2-0 last Friday, with manager Mauricio Pochettino in attendance. Shayon Harrison started and opened the scoring in the 21st minute after he latched on to a centrally played through ball and slotted past the keeper.
That's good for Shayon Harrison, but I've got a question for you. Which John Adams was it? Was it that one?
It was that one.
Wow.
It was former president. Back from the grave, not concerned about a government, is concerned about the progress of a Tottenham 2 player.
He's watching Spurs U23s.
Yes.
Steve Renard is scouting Yuri Tielemans, the 21-year-old Belgian.
He was always a fan of the British over the French, I'm just saying.
Is that right?
Yeah, John Adams, yeah.
So he would have enjoyed Liverpool v PSG.
100%.
Steve Renard is scouting Yuri Tielemans, a 21-year-old Belgian midfielder for Monaco. Hello, Steve. Another start further forward, another goal for Monsieur Tielemans. This one was a cracker from the top of the D that required goal line technology to get right. Steve says it looks like Tielemans is embracing the number 8 role and is enjoying his time as a box-to-box attacker as opposed to a more static number 6, or at least he seemed static when he was outrun by the opposition on a somewhat regular basis.
Yikes.
Steve throwing shade in the
Josh Buford scouting Luis Longstaff, 17-year-old winger for Liverpool.
Question mark in Longstaff's name?
The nationality was left out, so I don't know if it's like Lewis or Luis. It's a big difference.
I think he's English or Welsh.
So, like, Lewis, all right. Longstaff, the greatest name in football, has had a great start to the Liverpool U18 season. But you don't need to look it up. Get out of here. Playing the 90 in every game so far, Longstaff has regularly found himself in promising scoring positions, but has been off the mark with his final touch. This weekend, he finally found the back of the net versus the Newcastle U18s, scoring in Liverpool's 4-1 victory.
He's in English.
There we go.
He's in English. Even if you spell his name wrong, it still comes out. Ryan Marzak is scouting Josh Onumar, another English midfielder, 21-year-old English Messi. I thought it was the English Modric, on loan at Sheffield Wednesday.
That might be. I think I made it the Messi. It's Modric.
Okay.
Yeah, my bad.
English Modric.
And he's not even that anymore.
Josh Onumar. At the very end of the transfer window, Ryan says, Onumar was sent on a season-long loan to Championship side Sheffield Wednesday. Did that like Sean Connery. He has since appeared in 2 matches for them, including starting in the number 6 role against Nottingham Forest and leading the team with 6 tackles. I imagine him like telling everybody, charge, and he leads tackling from the front.
Sheffield?
Yeah.
I'm just trying to do my best Sean Connery. Sheffield Wednesday. That's all I'll go with.
That's pretty good.
Thank you. Matt Koss scouting Lucas Toussaint, 21-year-old French midfielder for Monaco. Criminally missing from TSA's match recap. That can't be Monaco. That's got to be Lyon. Yep. Criminally missing from TSA's match recap, Lucas Toussaint subbed on and made 6 touches in Lyon's 2-1 win over Man City.
Oh, we'll do a separate show analysing all 6 of his touches.
Yes, let's do it.
How about that?
Let's do it. Let's not do that.
The Toussaint special. Thank you to everybody for today.
Sounds like a French film special sort of thing. Yeah.
It'll be on very late at night.
Yeah.
Thank you to everybody for the Scouting Reports. Again, if you'd like to join the Scouting Network, it's totalsoccershow.com/join. Join at $5 a month or more. We give you a scout. $10 a month or more, we guarantee to answer a listener question per month. Taylor Rockwell, thank you for taking the time to talk to me today.
Right back at you, buddy.
Listeners, thank you for listening. We'll be back on Friday with yet another listener question special. There were so many great questions, we couldn't get them all in one show.